This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Today is November 2nd, 2022. This is the Council on Aging Board meeting, and we are being recorded. And welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. We'll call the meeting to order at 4:03, and I'd like to turn it over to Joan to introduce our new volunteer coordinator.
So a couple of you have met her already, but I'm glad to welcome Kate DeSanto, her second day at work, and it's been a marvelous addition to the office. So,
great.
I don't know if Kate wants to talk a little bit about herself or just, the basics.
Go ahead, Kate. You want to say a couple words?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to being a part of the Council on Aging and just participating in the various activities and getting to know everyone. I know Jim and Joan have heard this. I worked at UMass for 19 years and then decided to take a step back during COVID and just be more involved with my family. So I've been working from home and part-time for the past year and a half, and I'm excited to kind of get back out and be in front of people, actual people now from working from home and just getting involved. I've had a lot of experience with events and volunteer coordination and also working with various committees at the university. So I'm excited to kind of get that back in different aspects. And it's been a great first 2 days so far. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great to have you. Really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Kate will be working 10 hours a week?
I'll be working 10 hours a week. Yep. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
So 5 and 5, is that what you've came to? Okay.
Yes.
I always have a little flexibility with that. So that's great. That's double the hours, I guess, from the previous position. So that's exciting to have more coverage. So welcome, and we'll look forward to getting to know you better.
You as well. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to just bring up the minutes real quick. Is that okay with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Real quick is always the challenge. I just had a couple little things. Oops, okay, let me see. Here we go. Yep. I found a couple minor things, Jonathan. So but I'll see if anybody else has everything looked great and nicely detailed. I appreciate that.
We've already caught the at the beginning on the minutes, the August, the typo there. Under the topic minutes, about 2 paragraphs down.
Okay.
From the top. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's just a typo.
Change that. And yeah, I figured. And the same thing with the end, that the next the next meeting was September 7th at 4. Under the
it does say September?
Yeah.
All right.
We just can't get out of August, no matter what we do.
We want to stay in August.
Well, it's kind of almost August weather soon. So
Yes, very warm.
All right, let me just see. Was there anything else?
Just a couple of more things. My last name changed from Galvan with an accent, Galvan without an accent, and then Galvin, like the Irish.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I'm sorry, where is that?
Okay, let me see. I saw it on the minutes.
In the attendance, it has the accent.
Yeah, and then somewhere later on, doesn't, I don't remember it.
So you
Under minutes motion, she made a motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So it should be without the accent, is what you're saying?
No, with
the accent, right there, Jonathan. Right.
Okay.
In the minutes, it's possessive, and
hold on, because there you are.
It could be possessive, but it's just that it should be.
Well, isn't that funny? Because it does show in my copy. The accent.
Okay.
Accent. What is it called when it goes backwards?
Sylvia.
it's different in Spanish and French, I think.
In French is backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so.
And so at the very bottom.
Right. All right, but
like in Irish.
So this is without.
I know, but you want an accent, which is, and I'm not sure how to do it, although I did add one.
You have it at the top, so copy it from this right up here, Jonathan. Right? Is this correct?
That's correct.
No, It should be
Not
the other
correct.
way.
The other
That's
direction,
French. That's
the other
French.
direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
I have that trouble every newsletter, but I think Sandy's got it now, so.
Okay, we're good with that then? Those couple of minor things. So, great. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Sylvia?
I had a question too, though, but maybe we don't have to change it. It seems in the minutes that, in my opinion, we didn't accurately recount what we decided about the treasurer's report. But as that's on the agenda for today, why don't we just let it go? Because I thought what we decided is we were going to do away with it, eliminate it.
Yeah, did we make a motion to do that? I wasn't sure. We had a discussion about whether or not.
You may be right. It may have just been a discussion without a vote.
Yeah, so we'll do that vote today if that.
Okay, I think that's fine.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying too, Jim.
Yep.
You know, I think somebody like Jonathan made the comment, let's make Janet the treasurer or something. So I think I remember something like that. But
Okay,
I'm
okay, but
glad
are
it's
we,
not captured in the minutes because that's that we didn't vote for that at all. So
but are we still, okay, so will we be talking about whether we're going to have a treasurer or not?
yeah, I think yeah. Or whether we can accept the financial report and the accountant's reports in lieu of. And we can have a treasurer to kind of help with that. But it's, you know, right now we're down a person. And so anyway, so let's stick with the minutes. And I take your point well taken, Jim.
Okay. So I have no more problems. I think it's great.
So do we have?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Do we say we have a motion from Sylvia? Would you like to second, Jim?
I will second it.
Okay, great. All in favor going down the list. Jim,
Aye.
Sylvia,
Aye.
Josie. Aye. Jonathan,
Aye.
Janet, aye. Okay. All right. Thank you for the minutes. Thanks, Jonathan. Nice
All right,
job.
so let me just clarify, we're just making those typographical changes, right?
Yeah, we'll
The minor
capture
ones,
them.
yeah.
Yes. And Jonathan, we'll talk later, but my suggestion when we post the minutes that we post it as a PDF. When we post it on my town government, okay? Just so I don't forget to mention that later. I have a note to self here, so. Okay, moving on to the reduced treasurer's report. So let me pull this up here a little bit. Okay, so we can see it. So I have two tabs on it now. This was the one kind of for the summary for FY22. So we had just a couple of adjustments that I wanted to review from FY22. We no longer, let me see, so FY22 actuals. Down here under the state formula grant where we had a negative carryover in the past and at the last meeting. Bradley actually moved some of the payments for the instructors that should have been coming from the revolving fund. He took those that were under state formula grant and took them out of the revolving fund, leaving us with a positive $74.44 balance for the state formula grant for end of last year. Okay. Does everyone remember we had a negative $970? So some of those should have come out of our revolving fund where we collect money to pay for the instructors and that should be coming out of that instead. So that was corrected. So we do have a positive carryover for this year of $74.44. Is that clear? I know what I mean, but I just want to make sure everybody understands what I'm saying.
So the payments for the instructors was corrected from what to what came out of revolving fund before?
No, it was taken from the state formula grant, which put us into a negative number. And it should have been coming out of a revolving fund that we don't, it's a small fund. So we're not going to list it here on our kind of big overview to the treasurer's report, but that was where he was able to make those corrections. Okay. And the other thing is the van. So we have we had like a balance on our accounting sheets from the town accountant of some $18,000 and change the last meeting. We got a quarterly report from Franklin Regional that showed that we had a net of $22,704.79. So I modified that for FY22 to correct that. So out of the 28,000, we had an actual net balance of 22. And I have that sheet. I can show it to everybody without spending a lot of time to go through what a quarterly report looks like from Frida, but just to give you a quick overview to try to get a better understanding as much as we can. It's easier to do at the end of the year than the beginning of the year, honestly. So any questions on those couple of modifications that were reflected on the town accountant's report for FY22?
So on that EOY, what is that?
End of year,
Oh,
actually.
end of year. We had that amount left over?
No, that's what we spent.
That's what we spent, okay.
Yes, yes,
And we had the budget of the 28,
yes.
and do we lose that money?
It discontinues and they re-upped another grant for the FY23 for 28. So we didn't lose, we didn't use it, but we didn't lose it. We'll get the same
It's not
amount.
a
next year.
carryover. We don't
Right.
carry it over.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know that it makes a big difference, but if you might remember 4 years ago when, before the pandemic, we had to get money from friends to pay for transportation. So
Mhm.
it's been a lot of changes, since the pandemic.
And that was more because we are doing trips to Forest Park and additional things. So it's very hard to track it closely. So it's always good to have a little cushion. And again, I'll show you a little bit of that spreadsheet. And Joan is trying to schedule a meeting or has a meeting with Franklin Regional. When is that, Joan?
I
Monday?
believe it's Monday. I don't know if it's been verified, but that's what we're shooting for Monday.
Okay, to kind of review the quarterly report so that we'll have some discussion with them at that time. So this is just kind of a quick update from our last one. So this is our budget for FY23. And as I sent out, we do have this year $24,012 for our state formula grant. So we went from 12,000 and 14,000 and change, and like, I forget, $14,014 or something like that, close to that, to $24,012. So because of the census in 2020 and the payment of $12 per senior, and based on the census, we have 2,001 seniors as of 2020. Could be different now because people move in, people move out. But for the next 10 years, our number will be 2,001 that the state formula grant will be based on. So it's modified every 10 years based on the federal census. And so far to date, in the state formula grant, we have spent $4,867.24. And because we have, a new volunteer coordinator and the hours are doubled, which is great opportunity. Thank God the money has gone up by $10,000 that will help support that position. So that was our hope at the time. Right, Joan?
That's right.
Okay, so we'll just go over year-to-date expenses. This is again, as of 10/6. This is the last report that came out from the town accountant. So at that point in time, out of the Council on Aging director's wages, the next is out of the wage line, which covers, again, 70% of the program coordinator wage. We've sent 1944. We have not spent anything out of our expenses yet.
So there was a Zoom account that we did re-upped, so that will maybe show in next month's report.
Okay.
$159.
Okay, which is what we're using right now. Thank you. Then the Memory Cafe, as we get reimbursed, we don't have $39.90, but we have that to spend. So we haven't probably submitted anything for October yet, right? But
Right.
are there dollar amounts though? I mean, this is a little bit stranger to track because it goes from October 1st to September 30th.
Right.
This
So
stuff.
it's approximately $333 a month we get.
Well,
So
that formula didn't work last year.
it
So-
didn't work last year, but this month we will get our total $333. We could get our administrative costs was another $80 from one side, one grant. It's filled by two grants, one for caregivers, one for care recipients, and two have administrative costs, adjusted as part of it. So we can, some councils do the whole year of administrative costs. But anyway, it's approximately $333 a month if we have care recipients, which we had 5 at the last Memory Cafe.
Recipients or?
Recipients.
Okay, good. But I guess, Joan, if we have 1 month that we spend more than $333, and then we may have another month that we spend less than $333. So it's not necessarily a straight divide by 12 number, correct?
That's correct. They bill it that way. We bill it as a straight 12-month, but we can spend it as needed. Like when we have Sarah the Fiddler, it's $200 just for her. So anyway, it's and now we haven't really used that budget line because it was a little bit up in the air. So we'll work harder we're spending less money on it because we weren't sure if we were going to get reimbursed. So we're doing a lot more creative planning.
Okay, and if we could pay for get 3 months of administrative costs up front, is it a value to do that?
It certainly is. If yes, and then it's in the in that expense account. Like the money that we got from last year is still in that expense account. We didn't use it, and I don't have the exact figures. This $33,990 is what's going forward, but we were able to. I'm not sure it's in the accounting, but we were able to access. Not totally, but it was over $2,000.
That's yeah. Now, this is kind of
That should be available to spend.
But it should be available to reimburse what we've already spent, right?
Correct.
Okay. So it's not like we have extra money. We have money to reimburse what we've spent.
Well, we already used it from the formula grant, which was recommended by the town administrator. So going forward, it could be used from this account.
Okay. Yeah, we should try to do that if we could. Okay. And out of the 28,000 of Frida, we've spent to date 5638. So we're a quarter through. So that's somewhat tracking, I think. So any questions on the simplified treasurer's report? Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Oh,
Okay, who
I will second. Josie went first. I think.
First, okay, all right, great, thank you. Okay.
She's got the church behind her, I can't.
That's a lovely picture. Actually, that's about where you live, Josie.
That
It's
is
about
where I
your
live.
view every day.
Yes. That's it.
Susan has joined us. Hello, Susan.
There, sorry for being late.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you for the heads up. I appreciate that.
Right. So Jim, what did we settle on, Jim? You made the motion and Josie seconded, or the?
It's just the reverse. Josie made the motion, I seconded.
So let's have a discussion on the treasurer's responsibility moving forward at this time. Thoughts from the group?
Well, if I might make a statement, then I don't mean to be controversial. Well, yeah, I guess I do. But anyway, as an advisory board, we really have no control over the budget or budgeting.
That's correct.
So I think for our purposes, all we need to know is from the director if we're doing okay. You know, if we're running behind or if we have a surplus. But, you know, the funding and all that, I mean, from my personal view, I don't retain it after the meeting. And I don't really know if it's really worth the time at a meeting where we're an advisory committee to have such a granular report when all we need to know is, you know, this is our budget and we seem to be doing good, or, you know, we're having a little problem in this area. And does the board have any suggestions about what we might be able to do? I took 2 years of accounting in college and I left it there. So
I think it's important to have a check and balance, that somebody else is looking at the books or looking at the numbers. So I think it's important to have an actual treasurer. Like you said, you don't have to sign checks. At one time prior to my coming here, just when I was coming here, the board would sign, you know, off on warrants, on payroll, etc. But that has gone by the wayside. That's
Right.
Now it's the town.
But I think that what you're saying is that it's the town accountant who has the, I mean, even what we're talking about here, that's not official. It's the town accountant's reporting that is official.
Well,
And I think all we need is a report on where we stand, you know, because we have absolutely no responsibility for the budget unless you ask for help, you know, or input, and then we, you know, be our old, I mean, that's how I read my position, but that's my opinion.
Jonathan?
For what it's worth, let me just read from the COA bylaws.
Thank you.
Which I assume we're bound by, but I'm not sure how they came about. Who promulgated the bylaws?
The bylaws are more of they're not the town bylaws, our own board bylaws. So it's more of a processes and than a true bylaw, but.
Yeah, so this is what it says. The treasurer shall A, report to the board on financial matters, and B, a yearly budget, monthly statements of expenditures, and all financial accounts of the Board on Aging shall be reviewed by the treasurer. So does a yearly budget, which a yearly budget, monthly statements of expenditures, and all financial accounts of the board, of the COA, well, of the Board on Aging. Like, we don't have a financial account though, do we? The board doesn't.
No, the board doesn't. No,
Yeah, the council does.
correct. The department does.
Yeah, I'm just saying what it reads.
And, you know, in the proposed bylaws that we're asked to review, Jonathan, it says that, let's see, within the first month of the fiscal year for appointed committees and within the first month after the town election for elected committees, each group shall appoint a chair, vice chair, and a clerk. And there's no requirement at all for a treasurer.
So that's in the town bylaws, you're saying?
Well, those are recommended. And I don't know, I haven't seen the original. This is a suggested bylaw, and I don't know if it amends the pre-existing bylaw in any degree.
Jim, I have some experience in bylaws, so I ask questions that might seem too detailed and too nitpicking, but what it sounds to me like, because of the language that is used and what you just read, that applies to more than just the Council on Aging. So it sounds like it has something to do with the town as a whole. When it talks about each committee and each whatever, it has to have their own. if I understood you correctly. So I think,
and I would certainly defer to your expertise, Jonathan, but
oh, no, I'm just saying,
my view is that if you don't need a treasurer unless you're handling money, like if this were a club where we pay dues and like, for example, the Democratic Town Committee, we pay dues and then there's a report on what was spent and what's been kept and so forth. But we don't have an account. Our committee doesn't. That's kept by the town accountant. So, I mean, I'm not pushing one way or the other, but that's just my own personal feeling of, because we get into the nitty gritty and the weeds and the financial report, and there's really nothing we can do about it. We don't have responsibility for it.
Go ahead, Jen. Go ahead.
yeah, I agree with, I mean, I don't know what we're reading, but I read what our bylaws, and my view is the same as Jim's, though, is that in that we don't need as much. It can be maybe a bit less than what's talked about here. But we need to talk about, I mean, Jim does correctly raise the question of what the board's role is and the scope of that, you know, as an advisory board, and to what degree we want to get into the weeds of some of this stuff. I like what's being presented these last two meetings. There's a little bit more that I'd like, but I certainly don't feel like I need to know every expenditure. I may say, well, wait a second, that leaves another 30,000. Where did that go? And that, so then, you know, in answering the questions, you know, then I'd want to hear where it went. But I don't think as a matter of course, we need to be hearing about all the details every month. So I would go with what we're doing now and have a little bit more. And then we've got this little technical issue. You know, are we bound by what's in our bylaws right now, or do we need to change that?
Sylvia.
Yes, I understand that we don't, you know, we have no control over the overall budget. But as a board, advisory, whatever, of an agency that handles money, I think we need to monthly have a view of what's going on. Like Jay say, maybe not in detail, but I will feel more comfortable having a monthly view of the budget going up and down, and as a board member.
Let me ask Joan what value our assistance brings or doesn't bring to you as the director.
I think it's what Sylvia said, it's very good monthly. It helps me to be on task. I think it's being, what's the word that you're open about it? It's
Transparent.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's good to be transparent about the funding. I mean, obviously ours is pretty basic. It's our wages, it's our grants, it's our instructors. You know, we do have a small expense account, but I think it's good to be transparent. It's good to have a monthly view and let you know how we're spending it, and that we're doing a good job, that we're not spending too much too fast.
By the way, I agree with that, but I think that should be the report. You know, like when we have the printouts, you know, we're allotted this much, but we seem to be on track for all the accounts, but not to go into it in such minute detail as we have done traditionally, I think.
Well, for the last two times, we have had something new that it's easy, faster, and just dealing with what we have here and now. So I will, you know, recommend that we stick to that format that we have now and monthly review it.
Or present it, or yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
So I think we can split two things. I think there's a difference in what's reported to the board by the treasurer and what the treasurer does. And I think that would be in keeping with the bylaws. The treasurer, it says, shall report to the board on financial matters. So a report's given, and we're talking about what needs to be reported. As far as what the treasurer needs to be doing, the bylaws indicate that financial matters, the yearly budget, the monthly statements of expenditures, and that's detailed, and all financial accounts be reviewed by the treasurer, although it says financial accounts of the Board on Aging. I think, the more I think of it, I think there is a role for the treasurer to play, and I assume that this is what Nancy did in sitting down with Joan and maybe the accountant with Bradley, and determining each month where the money has gone and seeing if there's anything, any problems, whatever, anything that, and discuss it with Joan, try to get any corrections taken care of, anything needs to be taken, any corrections need to be made, but also to then report to the board anything that person, the treasurer, feels the board should know, in addition to just the very, the broad summary of where things are. So maybe that's something we can talk about and see what people feel is just what the role of the treasurer is beyond a report to the board, which I think most of us have said could certainly be, or all of us have said in one way or another, could be simplified from what it used to be. Is that clear? I'm just trying to make a distinction between what report the treasurer makes to the board, but prior to that, something more detailed in which the treasurer does in reviewing the finances of the council.
I might say that as Joan sees a merit to it and a benefit to her, and we're advisory, we're here to help. So I would be comfortable with anything you think might be helpful to you, Joan.
Well, I think having an additional treasurer as part of the board is difficult, only because our board is small. As you said earlier, there's no accounting that we have to do. We're not paying dues. We're not following the money. It's from the accountant that we get the information. So I think if the director, if myself, or with the help of Janet, if we just did a monthly report versus having a treasurer who's, reviewing it, and we're meeting together. I'll be honest, and Janet will say the same. We used to meet very regularly before this board meeting to make sure we were on target. I'm not sure, in the last few months, we haven't been able to, and we hope to pull all the information we need for today's meeting together without actually having a pre-planning meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with not having an actual treasurer, as long as it's reported monthly, either through Janet or myself, of what we're spending, how our wages are, obviously, I think that's important.
Going back to what Jonathan said, though, I think the issue then is, what do you want the treasurer to do? And it is one issue. And then the other issue is, how detailed should the treasurer's report be at a board meeting? And, whatever anybody wants is what the board decides is fine with me.
I don't think it's up to me, but I don't think a treasurer position is needed at this time. I think you mentioned the bylaws of having a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. And just those three positions are, for an advisory board, I think that's plenty.
So those what Jim is referring to, and Jonathan, is what I sent out last night. It's from the bylaw committee. It's kind of an umbrella of boards and committees. It's not specific to any one committee. That's what Jim is referencing. What Jonathan is referencing is like our bylaw / guidelines for our board, and those could be modified, or we can have a treasurer do a brief report. So I guess for today, the report that I shared, is that too weedy? I'm not looking for additional, I have plenty on my plate, so I'm not looking to go too deep into anybody's weeds. Honestly, I've got enough weeds in my own yard. And so I'm happy to, again, I think we need some kind of report, because I do think Joan will say to you, she's not an accountant. I mean, we were over $970 overspent in the state formula grant. I don't know until I did the report that Joan was aware of that, even though the documents are there. It's a matter of having the time to review them and look at them. And I'm happy to teach Joan, you know, a little bit more. I think she depends on the treasurer and myself to kind of look at that on her behalf. Tell me if I'm wrong, Joan. Maybe I'm
No,
making an assumption.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
And again, I don't want to take that, I'm not taking that authority away from you. We're just trying to assist you in balancing all the balls that you have in the air. So you eat less weeds than today. I like that word, Jim. Sorry.
It's quite all right. There's weed shops all over the place now, so. Oh, no. Right.
Or is that a sufficient amount? And again, this is, we get the treasurer's report from Bradley. I take his numbers, I put it into this report and I share it with you. That's basically all I'm doing at this point in time.
Yeah.
And if something looks like it's out of whack, then Joan and I can sit down and talk about, yes, when Nancy wasn't working, you know, during the day, and we had an opportunity to sit down and maybe meet with Bradley occasionally. If things, I mean, the FRITA grant's very hard to understand in general. A treasurer, I don't think the accountant really has to manage that. We can't manage it because there's a lot of other expenses that are involved that we don't see until after the fact, till the quarterly report comes out. And we got the fourth quarter like a week ago. So at the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, we got the fourth quarter report. So we can't depend on that totally either. So I'm happy to do whatever. And if we need to modify our bylaw, our COA board, advisory board bylaw, which is what we had put together not that many years ago, as sort of our guidelines as a board and what our responsibilities were. So I'm open to whatever motion y'all would like to move forward with. Josie, I know you have everything. You're very quiet over there, former treasurer.
He's muted, that's why. You need to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, frankly, I think it's quite, I'm quite glad to hear actually the way Janet has presented the information from the accountant and what's been included in that. And I think that we were in the weeds. Of course, at the time, we were being held accountable. I felt like we, as the board, were being held accountable. And I think things are now a little more reasonable. And certainly Joan's a lot more educated about it. And I prefer keeping it small, much just what's necessary and not the weeds. I'm terrible with weeds.
And it was an extremely, time consuming.
Oh yeah.
Josie and Nancy would, attest to that as well. And just historically, what Joan was referring to previously, she used to, for a brief period of time, reported to the COA board before we became an advisory board. And the town changed that bylaw to say we are an advisory board. We are not, Joan does not report to the board. And I think most of the people on this call and Lori LaSalle worked to get that bylaw changed so that the director, like most department heads, not every other department head, but most department heads in town would report to the select board through the town administrator to get the most visibility possible. I think it's in the most effective way for the COA to be run in any community. So, I think that's the recommendation, and that's what we fought to do, is to change that so that Joan, or that position, like most department heads, reports to the town administrator. So we were happy to make that change. We already had the formula in there. Joan, it was probably more work for Joan to have to educate the treasurer and send them the documents, and some were missing, and, you know, it was a lot of back and forth that isn't really necessary. But until we didn't have it, did we know maybe we didn't need it?
Right.
Well
So-
said.
I'm open for a motion.
Well, is it appropriate to move that we keep the reporting the way it is currently being done? The way Janet has proposed it and presented it? Is that,
My question is, what do you mean by currently done? You mean what we had today?
yeah, the last two
Okay,
meetings.
yeah. I would second that.
Or whomever the treasurer would be.
Yeah,
And just also to comment, when it comes to budget season, I work very closely with Joan in putting her budget together, and then simply share it with the board and get your feedback on it, and, you know, your perspective, and whether it, or even the ARPA funds. I mean, we don't really have responsibility, but, you know, I mean, many hands make light work, or whatever that is. But, you know, I think it's helpful for Joan to have other points of view. And this board, you know, I appreciate anybody that steps up to help in that process. Because you bring all different ideas, all good ideas, you know, and then as a group are able to make some positive
Thank you.
transitions. So, all right, do we have a motion yet? Are you guys working on it while I'm yakking?
well, I moved it, but I didn't
Okay,
state it very well, so.
No, but I understood. So,
so to move forward with a simplified, just monthly report of where we stand to date,
Yes,
without the details.
I would make a motion that the monthly financial report to the committee or to the board contain only the information that the director and chair feel is relevant and necessary, but as succinct as possible.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Josie. So any additional discussion on that particular motion?
Yes. First of all, Jim, you made the motion, and who seconded it?
Josie, I believe.
Josie did.
All right. Just a second, let me just get this down.
The wording
I-
of what I know I don't get to vote, but the wording of whatever the chair and the director feel is important for you to know. I don't know, that's, you know, I think it should be either specifics like the wages or whatever specifically that we're going to have in the report versus what we think is important.
which is what it appeared today.
And you can attach today's report as an example to the minutes, Jonathan, if you want to do something like
Yeah.
that too,
Well-
you know, as reflected in today's meeting or something.
I apologize for dragging this out, but I thought this report was fine for today. But rather than to be wedded to a specific format, there may be occasions where there's a particular issue that you want to bring to our attention. So, I mean, if you want to do this, it's fine. You determine the format in which you want to present it to the board, is all I'm suggesting, rather than saying it's got to be in this form.
I hear you. I hear similar to this. Yeah, and I think that anything, because those are their major categories. Joan and I talked a little bit about this beforehand. These are our key major categories that we need to track, whether it's both the grants, you know. So if there's anything that's going to be out of whack, that's important for you guys to know about, it's within this report. It should be captured within this report.
Right.
Janet?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think we have to redo the motion, but I do think I for one would like to see a couple more things spelled out here. I mean, when I look at the state formula grant and it tells me that it supports, 100% of the volunteer coordinator wage and 30% of the piece of the, but the project, what's the other one? Project coordinator? Is that the PC? Program coordinator. Doesn't tell me how much. I'd like to know approximately how much that is going to that, and then how much money is left over that goes to other programs, and it doesn't have to be broken down for all the programs, but in groups, categories, or just miscellaneous,
And
whatever.
then we
So
need a treasurer, Jonathan. We'll need somebody to be a treasurer in order to do that.
Okay, but it will be helpful in the future just to know where money is going. It doesn't have to, we don't have to know it. I don't think I need to know every line, but it would be nice to know how much is going to from the grant is going to these things, and then how much is going to something to these other categories, and then how much is left over that is not allocated, not just spent, but that hasn't been allocated to the wages or to some of the ongoing programs. If we're talking about we want to spend so much money, I don't mean so much, but a certain amount of money, that especially the extra 10,000 that we have in the state formula grant this year, it would be nice to know how much money we expect to be spending anyways that is allocated. Okay, so we allocate so much for the salaries. I don't know how much that is. And to know that, then I know how much money, after all that's been spoken for, how much money is left over that we have. Or are we running short and going to have to find money from somewhere else to fund some of that stuff? I think that can be done without having to be too detailed, but it'd be nice to kind of know those amounts when having a quick view. I'm talking about adding a few lines, not about breaking out every tiny expenditure, because I still don't know how much we're paying. I know you have reviewed it, Nancy reviewed it at the meetings, but like with Jim, I don't really have it written down as to how much is going to these different things. What this does, which I really like, is it tells me how much is coming from different sources, what the source is. It doesn't tell me just where all of it is going or the broad categories.
Could I interject for a moment? So in the past, for years and years and years, the formula grant, you had to submit a budget. And there is a form that we use every single year that we had to submit a budget. I have that form. I'll be glad to, with the new figures, submit a budget. I probably could do it within a month, but now that I have full staff, I can do some more director things. And I would be glad to fill out a budget for the formula grant.
I would find that helpful, Joan.
Yeah, no problem. That was required to get the grant for 20, 30 years, as long as it's been in existence. So just recently they said we didn't have to have it. But I think it's important to know where that money goes. It's important for us to know, for me to know. So I'd be glad to find that form and fill it out with the 24,000 and change that we're getting. And it breaks down how much each wage, how much the program coordinator would get, how much the volunteer coordinator get, how much is open for transportation. There's all kinds of line items there. And
I think that would be helpful. If we're going to be discussing how we want to spend, if we're going to be developing wish lists of things we want the COA to do in the future and to spend money on, then I'd like to know what kind of money we have to begin with and where it's going. And again, I'm not looking at line by line. I just want to know in general different, some of these broader categories, but obviously the actual salaries, how much we are budgeting for that. It would be helpful when we have these other discussions.
I can do that.
Okay. Thanks.
So let me just real quickly, because I think that it kind of contradicts what Jim said earlier. So, either we have a simplified report or we break everything down. And those are two very different concepts right here that were just explained.
Where no one has talked about breaking everything down. No one has talked.
I'm not done. can I
Okay.
finish my sentence, please? I was very courteous to let everybody finish theirs. So if you look at the $24,000 that we have from the state formula grant, just over $15,000 of that 24,000 is spent on salaries. All right, almost $16,000 of the 24 is spent on salaries. Okay, so that, let me just do a quick. So that leaves about $8,200 left for Joan to, plus the $1,200 of expenses to manage the rest of the center for the rest of the year, plus the revolving fund of monies that she collects. I mean, I know it seems like not that complicated a thing, but that's, knowing that almost $16,000 of that 24 goes to salaries.
That was simple. Thank you.
Yep. So, I mean, the rest of it is up to Joan as the director of the department to determine how she's going to manage that additional $8,000. It's not going to, so, and as far as programming and other things, again, we're advisory. She can come to us and we can try to give her some guidance, but I don't know. Now I feel like we have two different points of view here, and one is much more time. I mean, if that's enough for you, Jonathan, for now to know we have $8,000 to run all the rest of her programs and to buy supplies and to do whatever else. And then knowing that she has the Friends monies that if she needs something to purchase, plus we have an ARPA fund, right? So it gets, either we're going to do this simple form or we're going to go into more detail, but I'm hearing two things and we had a motion. And so I just need clarity, I guess. Jim.
I would move that, I would like to retain the motion that I suggested, but with the understanding that when a special instance comes up or a particular program, that we would certainly have access to the accounts in order to formulate solutions. But I mean, on a month by month basis, it seems that we're going over the same accounts over and over again. And what the board needs to know is, what does Joan need from us? We're going over on wages, but if we move something from here to here, what does the board think? And again, we would just tell Joan what we think, but it's her decision. And so I would reiterate my motion.
Could you reiterate your motion?
I knew you'd ask that.
Jonathan, did you capture his motion? And we had a second, so I just want to.
Well, I think, given the discussion, Jim should go ahead and restate the motion that he wants. And Josie can decide whether she wants to second it. But I also just want to say very quickly, I mean, I'm not going to go into it. I think I stated before what I meant. And I'm sorry if you misunderstood me. I wasn't asking for a lot of details.
Okay.
So but Jim, why don't you restate the motion and I'll record it.
All right. I move that the monthly financial report to the Council on Aging Board be composed of the items and issues that Joan and the chair feel are relevant and important to us, and that they be reported as succinctly as possible, but in any form that Joan and Janet feel is appropriate.
And use director and chair because,
A director and chair, right. But no, because the way I worded it, you can't retire.
Ha, 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 ha. That's why I asked you to rephrase it.
I have a correction to my previous statement. Oh, do we have a second? Sorry. Josie, you want to still second that or?
You're muted, Josie.
You're muted.
Sure. I'll second it.
You second it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's take a vote. And then I'll correct my previous calculation, okay? All in favor of Jim's motion? Let me do a roll call. Jonathan,
Aye.
is that a yes?
Aye.
Jim?
No. No,
What?
I would say yes. I just wanted to do that, yeah.
Sylvia? Okay. And you have to have a voice vote, please.
Yes.
Josie,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Janet, yes. Okay, so. And it can be modified as we move forward into the year. So, so it's not. So the number I had before, I actually did the program coordinators 70% instead of 30%, Joan. So the total salaries for the program coordinator at 3 hours, not 7 hours,
Mhm.
and 10 hours for the volunteer coordinator was just under 12,000, not 15,000. Okay. Because we pay 3 hours out of the state formula grant for the program coordinator and 7 hours out of the town. So I reversed that. So my bad. So
Actually,
sorry.
she's a 13-hour position, the
Oh.
program coordinator.
Well, we'll get that number for the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, but how many hours in the so 3 hours still? No, or
You're right. I believe it's 10 and 10 and 3. Is that still 70%?
well, let's get it out, but it's not as high as I had projected initially.
Okay,
So,
let's work on that for the next.
okay. All right. All right, Joan, do you want to give us, everybody have a chance to look at their director's report? You want to highlight some things and
So
talk about specifically the Memory Cafe, then we'll talk about the ARPA grant.
okay. So the memory cafe, as you know, we did get refunded for that. And the stipulation is that we build it, we get more people involved that are for the target audience. And I think, we are working towards that. Sandy's working very diligently for outreach and she did a new brochure. I'm not sure, is that on the agenda? The brochure.
I can bring it up if people want to take a look at it or whatever.
We felt it was very important to get it to a lot of agencies because we just felt the word really wasn't getting out there of what a memory cafe is and what it can do for a community to have such a valuable tool for socialization, for stimulation, for many, many things. I think it's one of the most valuable programs I've done. I've said that before in the last 5 years. And it brings a lot of joy to me just to experience the people that are coming and when they benefit from it. It's just a marvelous thing when we had family members, a husband and wife who are, just relate to each other at a different level because it's an open space where people can, maybe they're not verbal, but there's a connection, that there's a happiness around the music, around the gathering of folks. It's just a real important event and activity. I'm really, really glad that Southampton was able to, and Highland Valley, gave us that grant to try to develop it. And I think it really is coming to fruition. Every month we get different people, but some are the same. And I think it's real important to keep it going as long as we can.
So did everybody get a chance to look at the brochure? I know Sylvia and I gave some feedback because Joan is good at sending it to a couple of us and then I sent it to Rini because of her kind of background and to look at and get you some feedback too, Joan. So I didn't know if anybody else had feedback. Some of the feedback we had were the pictures, if they're local people, we shouldn't show faces, and maybe something that's more, if it's a service dog and friendly or, the pictures were, I asked Joan to read a little bit on the pictures. I know Sylvia had some similar comments, if we're going to use pictures from people, we need to get, especially in a marketing brochure like that. It needs to be their approval or maybe their backs and maybe more focused on the instruction or the instructor or whatever.
So we may want to get more stock pictures like we did for the flyer for the community engagement, something that it shows people interacting or being involved. In fact, I've been asking Sandy to do more of that in the newsletter. Instead of the cartoon, caricatures, get real people, maybe not our people, but actual people. That it's more adult versus cartoons, So I think we're working on that marketing strategy to get real people that, like you said, you have to get permission if it's somebody we know, but if it could be just stock photographs of people that are involved.
I received a copy of that through email. I don't know from whom it came, and I thought it was excellent. Thank you.
I sent it out to the board. I think I sent it out to everybody.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
I don't remember.
But now I never thought of the photographs, but that's a very good point, and I agree with you. Maybe if you could get some stock photographs, but there's something really good though about seeing people in our room, and an idea of how many people were attending. It gave me a very good feeling about the program. So good job.
Josie, just so you know, the email I sent out yesterday with the Zoom link and stuff, it was one of the attachments.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, that's okay.
I didn't print it out because I've got black and white. My toner's running low.
Sylvia?
Yes, I think it's, just like Senor Palermo said, it is our program, excuse me, and it is, the patients that come, the people that come for a reason. So they're the ones that should be highlighted rather than stock photographs. One of the things that can happen is when the photographer is there, Tony is his name?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. When Tony is there, if he's there at the very beginning, introduce him and let people know, if it is okay with you, he will be taking photographs. And right there, you're giving the information as to where those photographs are going to appear, why photographs are being taken. And that's when people, that will have to be done like at every session, if not the same group comes. Some people are going to say no. And so the option of taking people's backs, and it's for a number of reasons, confidentiality. And I used to do that in the classroom with my students. And so, and it's also a matter of simple courtesy, letting people know that there's a photographer right there and why this person is there, rather than, somebody started clicking and like, ooh, who's this person and why is this happening? We need to make them comfortable. They need to feel comfortable, and that is part of letting them know why the photographs are being taken and how they're going to be used.
Do they have to sign a waiver too? Would that be?
Well, that's the other thing, to have a form in which, photographs may be taken. It is, we can work on the wording, but they have to give permission for the faces to be shown.
I don't know if they're HIPAA considerations, because they're people.
HIPAA, you mean?
Yeah,
What did I?
HIPAA.
HIPAA, right.
I think he did that on purpose, didn't
It
he?
was my exercise class. A bunch of hippos. But hippos.
I think it's confidentiality is so important that if we can focus on the structure with the people's backs instead of faces, or putting faces of people in it that aren't necessarily subjects or coming for that purpose, and then they may draw a conclusion, well, why is that person on a dementia thing, and maybe they are, and maybe we didn't know, and so
but the idea too of having signed permission slips, and I wonder if Highland Valley could offer guidance on that, whether they use sign waivers to save us from facing legal problems,
Yeah,
Well, precisely so that we don't have legal problems, we're asking them to sign, to give permission to appear on a photograph.
Did you see Katie's, I'm sorry, Kate, I called you Katie. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But she had a message up there that she has an example of the release form.
great. A photography waiver? Could
We
you
have to
share?
sign them every year for the school district. So I'm happy to bring that in, and it allows for you to say it's okay to do photography of your children and post on social media or not post on social media, that type of thing as well. So I'm happy to bring that in.
Yeah,
Great.
I used to use that in my classroom.
Yeah.
Good.
And it's very simple. It's, there's nothing out of the world.
But I know we said at the last meeting, if we didn't do something different, we are going to have the same results, right, Joan? So this is great. I was so excited to see this first attempt was amazing. And it's close to final. And I get some feedback from, I think when Rini gets a chance and she's not either driving or somewhere else, to take a look at it, get one last feedback, or if anybody else has feedback, just send it to Joan and maybe just highlight the date. My only other thing was to highlight the date, the third Thursday of the month at 10 a.m., make it bold or something so that part sticks out. But
And Sandy suggested if it was something we printed there to put the next cafe is scheduled for and put the date right in there. But
yeah,
then you have to,
do we want a general marketing brochure
right.
that we can use over and over again rather than trying to get it out? I mean, I think we have to have both, sort of have that we can distribute, and we have marketing funds, right, through the grant.
Mm-hmm.
So get some of these printed up. I'm sure we could fold them, but and get them out and delivered to different locations, which is, kind of a consistent message. And then, you have your monthly flyer, advertising flyer too. I think both are great options.
Yeah, it was your idea. So thank you for sending it our way.
Yeah, we talked about marketing. So anything else on that? But I'm feeling we're taking baby steps, right, Joan?
Yeah, but it's great. And I know time is like moving along here. So I don't know if you want to move along to like the community engagement or whatever else is on our
I'd like
important.
to just take a look at them. First, the ARPA stuff. You guys worked on together?
Yes.
Trying to bring it up. Just so if you could, someone speak to this who worked with Joan on this.
Is Rini on the line?
She is, but I think she may be in transit.
Oh, I
Yeah, I actually am, but I'm driving right now. So if somebody has the document in front of them, that would be helpful to kind of review.
Yeah, we have it up on the screen, Rini. Can't you see it? No, just kidding. It's right there. No. So maybe who else was on the committee? Sylvia?
Yeah, and Señor Palermo.
And
The three
Jim.
of us.
So between the two of you, if you could kind of go over a little bit of this.
Sure. This, in our brainstorming meeting, this is the summary of what we came up with as suggestions. And it's, of course, it's general. We need to go more in detail, but here it is. On programs, it was education classes for folks like they're thinking about retirement and they need some guidance, Medicare, issues with Medicare, computer, and language, like the classes that are being given right now. Continue with that. Support groups such as bereavement and caregiver, travel educational programs, people share slideshows, photographs, information on trips, have cultural food as well. And then programs specifically for men. Some details were talked about, but we didn't go really into it, just focus on men.
Men's health, I think, was one that was mentioned.
I'm sorry?
Men's health, health issues, health. classes or education.
Right, right. And
So,
I'm sorry.
may I make a comment?
Yes,
By
you
all
may.
means.
It's interesting. I haven't seen this before just now, so I appreciate the work you've put into this. It just so happens that last evening at one of our book club conferences after or whatever, another woman and I from the church, we were kind of brainstorming about what we could help with in terms of helping seniors in the community. That's one of our goals. And we had talked about I better look up my notes. We talked about either an end of life program or a grief program. Now, we have not gotten anything done with that yet. We hope to be able to maybe either work with folks from the senior center and in terms of creating either a grief or end of life type of program.
It was a girl's name Leah. I met the pastor came by with
Yeah,
Leah.
well, I want to, she wasn't the one in the yesterday, but we want to work with her. And we'd love to work with you, Joan, and anybody else that, you want to include in that. And, we're just at the very, very beginning of this.
Mhm.
But, I think our minds are kind of going in the same direction. So I think that's good news.
Yes.
I think the senior center or the Council on Aging really needs to get some really important things to discuss. And,
Mhm.
not everybody wants to come to bingo and exercise. We really
Right.
need to have some discussion about things that affect, seniors and the older population. So I think, whether it's at the church or at the senior center, I think that's going to happen in the near future. And the funding will help to get, books or whatever we need to
Mhm.
support those groups.
The other thing is, that we have the, what's it called? Pound out Parkinson's or something like that. And although the original trainer is not there, they have somebody else who's working with us or having the classes at the church on, I think, twice a week rather than 3 times a week. But
Josie, is there something that you could give to Joan to put in a newsletter regarding those times and dates? Because I know I've had people ask me and I don't have the answers, and there's a community
about the
about the Parkinson's.
yeah, and I was thinking we should include the advertising for the
Memory Cafe.
cafe that we could hand out in those classes too.
Yeah, I went to a couple of those classes. I'm very jealous. They're well attended. They're people that really are very active, and I'm glad the church is hosting that. We just don't have room, but I'm glad
Right.
that the church is hosting that.
So if we could somehow get it into the newsletter to get out to people, Joan,
I think that's important. Thank you.
Sure. I'll see what I can.
Okay,
do.
Josie, we're going to have to get back down to the ARPA stuff. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Those are great. Great. Let's talk more about that though, together with Joan, and I'm happy to join.
So for staffing, we spend, I guess, more time on this than anywhere else, but the importance of having an outreach worker or a social worker, depending on what we want the person to do. There's a lot that an outreach worker can do, but also a social worker will be licensed. So more discussion needs to be taking place on this issue, but the importance of having somebody to do the work that needs to be done right now for the expansion of the programs that we want to happen. Have somebody dedicated just to that, whether it's part-time or whether it's full-time, that's a future discussion. But this was
I
one-
might add that the discussion there was too, that the toolkit for the cafe talks about having trained
Volunteers.
volunteers. But the idea too is that we need to have, and with Joan's guidance, of course, people who could determine what's an appropriate, for example, craft, or what's an appropriate activity to involve people with memory issues. So, yeah.
So, like the example that appears here, an occupational therapist, somebody that can be trained. So when the group is working on something, that they're doing something that specifically targets the skill that they can develop or they can expand. That's just one example. Then supplies, an amplifier here for the support for programs. Transportation for special events, like going to the Majestic in West Springfield, musicals, art galleries, Tanglewood, Boston movies, etc. And the car for senior transportation. You want to expand on that, Senor Palermo?
But to be honest with you, I really don't know what was meant by that. I know
I have
that,
a blank,
Yeah.
I have a blank on that one. to tell you
but
the
I
truth.
think, and maybe Maureen could correct me if I'm wrong, is to when the van is busy or when there's only one or two people, that instead of using the van, we would have an automobile at our disposal that could take people to places, much along the same service provided by the van, but on a smaller detail, or to handle the overflow, if you would. But am I anywhere close on that?
Yes, and that's actually in our discussion of our campaign funds too, or capital funding. So, but
Right.
since the $50,000, was granted to us, I mean, there is a discussion. Of course, with a vehicle comes all kinds of other additional things,
Insurance.
the driver's
Maintenance.
wages, the insurance and everything. So anyway, that has to be talked about.
Weed it out,
Yeah.
yeah. And then on fundraising, along with the community-wide fundraising event and all the proceeds to benefit Senior Center, one of the things that it occurred to me is that I am involved currently in another board in which an endowment is going to be, we're working on an endowment. We're working on that for about a year and a half now, and it's beginning to work, the fundraising. But one of the things is that to hire, I think none of us, at least I'm speaking for myself, have as much as I would like to do it, I don't have the skills to ask for money. I don't feel comfortable. I don't know if anybody on the board, we all have to do it, but hiring somebody to be the fundraising person that makes the connections to bring the money in collaboration with the friends and the capital campaign. We're going to have needs in the future with a new building, new supplies, whatever comes down the pike. So rather than all of us worrying and not knowing how to whatever, talking with Rini at the meeting, we can request a grant and another ARPA grant for a specific hiring of a person to do the fundraising. That's it.
So what are the next steps after this? Now that you've had this meeting and brainstorming, what did you come up with some next steps or?
Well, the next steps will be, we brought all these suggestions to the board, and then either we prioritize where do we get started, or if all of this is accepted, then we continue working and start prioritizing in, I mean, you know, for example, the educational classes and all of that, we need money for that. You know, that's ergo the idea of the fundraising. Training people to do certain things, somebody needs to be the trainer and the person needs to be paid. Ergo, again, the fundraising. We do have right now $50,000 to hire an outreach worker or a social worker. Do we start concentrating in that with these monies? Because it is going to open the door to things that we cannot do right now, like bringing people in order to do our memory cafe the way it's supposed to be working. I think that's one of the priorities that, you know, we need to, as a group, we need to concentrate on. Start concentrating in staffing and in fundraising, writing the grant to ARPA so that we can move into different directions, you know, to enhance the services that we are or we're not giving.
So I guess my other question is, and to kind of get back into our advisory roles. So has any of this been, I mean, granted, Rini is on the select board, but even a discussion with Ed should probably take place as we to kind of give some sense before we go down a road and then we, for any reason, find
Oh,
a,
yes. No,
yeah.
no, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to go through the, you know, program at, I don't know how to call them, bureaucracy that we need to.
Which I love.
So
So we're already having growing pains because now we have 3 people back in the office and they're working more hours. So there's some overlap. So, you know, adding another desk, another computer, we're waiting for a new phone system to come. So to add another staff in the near future, I think is going to be a little complicated. Can it be, you know, a spring, something in the spring or, you know, in
Well,
early next year? That's a
Joan,
possibility, but we do have some growing pains already.
one thing is that we don't have the money. Well, we do have the money to do that, but I mean, we need to talk a little bit more about that. And yes, we are cognizant of space. I mean, you were there at the meeting and you brought that up, you know, that if the person is going to need a privacy to talk to the patients, to the clients. And one thing that, you know, you mentioned is you could leave your office to do it. But, you know, for how long is going to be that? Once this person is on board, I don't think things are going to begin to happen right away. It's going to be a process. I don't think it's going to happen before, I don't know, December or January. We have to put, you know, first decide what do we want, what can we work with the money that we have, outreach or social worker, and then come up with what are going to be the duties of this person.
So if there's another ARPA application, is somebody going to, Joan, are you going to be able to take a look at that and start an application process or?
Well, so do we still have the grant committee or they're not working with that anymore?
That's ARPA. That's really not the grant committee.
Okay.
That's applying for outside grant. ARPA's internal to Southampton.
But, you know, let me ask you a question. I thought that the sub ad hoc committee's role was to come up with ideas. And I think that these are just brainstorming ideas and that they need to be refined. And we have to decide which ones have potential and which don't. I'm not sure just how to accomplish that. If you want the ad hoc committee to continue and to make more formal presentations about what they have in mind, and then we'd be able to discuss whether or not it's possible or desirable or, you know, things of that nature. But I think we need to put together a concrete programs that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so that Joan and Janet can decide whether or not it's something that the COA would really want to do.
Yeah, and again, it's not Janet's decision, just to put that in the minutes. It's not Joan and Janet. It's really Joan and the select board, or Joan and the town administrator. So,
Right, but I'm saying with proposing, put together what it is that we want to propose, but I understand what you're saying too.
okay, just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
So I think this is great. I mean, amazing list of things. I mean, we can, what would the subcommittee like to do next? I mean, you want to expand on them? Do you want to give our group a little more time to review this and then at the next meeting, come back? I mean, this is money we have. We don't have to make a decision today.
Correct.
I would propose, and this isn't a motion, I'm just proposing to the ad hoc committee that perhaps that we each write up our ideas of what it is we have in mind and meet again and to discuss the various proposals and then make a formal presentation to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a brainstorming. I think it's pretty accurate. You know, we have an understanding of what the needs are and what needs to be done. It's just now weed out what we can and what we cannot do by when and how and who needs to be involved in order to move it forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, I compliment all of you on the list. It's a great list.
Who's on the committee?
Señor Palermo, myself, Rini, and Joan.
All right. Well, if you would allow me to be in there and I can give at least another.
I think that puts it at a quorum, Josie. We can only really have 3 board members or we have a quorum.
Oh, so.
Well, Rini, I'm sorry, I take that back. Rini is not a voting member, so you could do that.
Okay. All right.
Take that back. So
if we can work out a time and I'm able to be there, I would love to be a part of that.
okay, great. And thank you again, all of you, for a great list. Okay, anything else? So thanks, Jim, for bringing that around. It certainly needs more detail, but it's a great first step and shows a lot of thought.
I did want to inform you, because we mentioned the amplifiers, that the Lions Club mentioned at the meeting the other day that they were going to donate $500, I think to friends, but anyway, that money they may earmark for some kind of amplifiers as well, or portable.
Can I just, at the Friends raffle, I won a Barbie doll. And it's a collector's version. Well, I was talking to Francine and I had a ticket in my hand and I thought I was putting in for booze, but I got the Barbie doll. But it's a collector's item and I'm trying to figure out where I can get it appraised. And if it has the value that it might have, I'd want to contribute that back to the because I don't play Barbie anymore, but
that was very thoughtful. I'm not sure. I know there's marketplaces and things that maybe we could have somebody Google it for you.
Yeah. Well, I tried that, and I went on eBay and stuff, and it could be worth $12, but some of them went up to a couple thousand. And this comes with a suitcase and it's got, everything that Barbie needs.
Well, we'll see what we can do to help you.
And this is after her divorce, so she's really doing well.
Okay. So I did have a note on here to go talk about the senior property tax work-off program, because it did come up at the select board meeting. I know we're kind of running short on time, and so I may table that to the next one, Joan, but I think
I don't know that we can we talk about it really quickly? Because the December 5th is the deadline for that.
Okay.
So I think it's important just to at least let people know what's happening. So the senior tax work-off, you may have heard Easthampton had a big to-do about it. We have about 6 or 7 people that are on that program. They do over 100 hours a year, either in the library, in the clerk's office, in the senior center, and they get about $1,500 off their taxes. But they're at $12.75 an hour right now. We're trying to get them up to the minimum wage, which is $14.25 at least. That means they would have to work less hours. But I think it's important that, you know, their time is valuable. And it's a valuable program. Some people can't pay their taxes without this program. And so there's a couple things happening. I think we need to pay attention to what the select board is saying. One other thing is they take taxes out of that payment. So they have to work over the 120 hours to get the $1,500. And I don't know how that all works, but I need to
I didn't think they did that.
That's what I was told by one of the workers, one of the volunteers.
I would look it up online to make sure that's an accurate statement. And if I could suggest that, because I think in our form, it says under $30,000 annually or less, and I'm not sure that that's a correct number. So maybe get with somebody in the assessor's office, whether it's Janine, who's pretty knowledgeable, to make sure that the form we're using is up to date, because, you know, Mass General law does change.
When the assessor was here, Martha, it was up to date.
Because I've gone to other community web pages, town sites, and it's a different dollar amount than that.
Each town adopts a different amount, I think.
Okay, so can you, as far as tax, so I think Lucy may have what was passed according to the last select board meeting. I think it was passed, and I don't know, Rini, I don't think you were there, but I think it was passed in a long time ago, maybe 2003, maybe before that. Ask Lucy if Lucy, can she provide to you the article that was passed, so that we make sure that everything we have is correct. And you're right. I mean, they can only work up to $1,500. So if they're making $4.25 or 15 starting in January, then they work fewer hours for the same amount of money, but they're just working fewer hours to earn that. And they have to work all those hours to get that taken care of. So I just want to make sure our form is correct. And maybe if you can get with Janine or whomever and Lucy and see if that form is accurate, because I know it's people are signing up now, right, for next year.
Joan, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Joan, are you looking for the board to endorse the increase in the rate to the current minimum wage? The select board voted to increase all town workers, and included also at one time the volunteer coordinator, but also election workers, all the EMTs, firefighters, everybody that was below minimum wage, with the increase going up in the state. So no, everybody in the town. So, I mean, are you asking for the board to endorse going up on the rate for the reimbursement for the work-off program?
Right. Would that be a continuance because you already did that?
No, we did it per position.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, right now, the form that's in the file listed hasn't gone up since 2020, Rini. So.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just was just wondering if Joan was looking for this board to vote to authorize the recommendation that the work-off program reimburse, or credit people based on an hourly wage, the minimum wage, that it matches the minimum wage, so you don't have to vote again in January when it does go up to 15. I'm just wondering if that's what you're looking for the board to do, because I know you wanted to talk about it.
Yes, absolutely.
So same $1,500, but at a faster pace.
Correct.
But I just want to make sure our form is accurate too at this point. I'm hoping it. I don't know if it's by town and if that was in that article that was passed, Joan. It's probably good to get a copy of that. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Joan, maybe at the next meeting, you'll go over the 10-year capital plan, and we met with Ed the other day about that. I'm just going to do the meat of the feasibility committee happens next week on the 10th, when we hope we have a good turnout. And that, thanks, Josie, that we have to move to another room because the Council on Aging is too small and we hit more than 75 people. So that's a good statement for needing a larger senior center. But so on Thursday at 3:00, November 10th, we're having our senior input sessions. I hope all of you can make it. We'll have Abacus, our architects there. It's more to share some information, but really gain a larger perspective of what our community here in Southampton is looking for in a future. And I've started to call it the Senior Activity Center, Joan. So
I saw that.
so,
Janet,
yes.
where's the meeting going to be on the 10th?
it's at the senior center.
Oh, I thought you said it wouldn't be there.
No, I said if it's too big, if the group is too big, then we'll have to split them in between the senior center and the select board because we have a maximum capacity of 75
Oh, I see.
in the
Yeah.
senior center. So
Were we supposed to RSVP?
no, we don't have an RSVP set
Okay.
up. So.
Come early to get a parking place. That's what I'm advised.
And please spread the word. I sent the flyer out yesterday as well. So if you get a chance to spread the word, that, great. You will probably get it from, 4 or 5 different people 4 or 5 times. And that way we'll never forget.
Right.
So that's at 3:00, right?
It's at 3:00, correct.
Okay,
Josie can just roll down the hill.
that's what I'll do, as long as it's not raining.
Walk down.
We have a meeting tomorrow at 12:30. Our next feasibility committee meeting is a Zoom with the architects. And we're kind of talking about some of the different properties that we've looked at and somewhat positioning and what would work and what wouldn't work, and looking at the viability of some of the properties, whether the ones we have looked at are really viable or not. So, yes, Sylvia.
How long the meeting will be? Because I mentioned it to a couple of people and they said, how is it going to be 2-3 hours?
Probably 2 hours.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
And that's when? And
The 10th.
tomorrow.
The 10th.
Next, a week.
3
from
o'clock.
tomorrow, November
Week from tomorrow.
3:00.
Oh, okay, so,
You probably got another flyer from me today, Josie. So
okay.
you've probably
I
got.
thought you were talking about another meeting
Oh, no, the
in
feasibility.
addition to this one.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
that's just the feasibility committee meets tomorrow.
I saw
12:30.
some of those flyers at town hall today. I
Good.
was there this morning and I saw them.
All right, I have to leave, folks. Very interesting meeting.
Okay,
Take
thanks,
care.
Josie.
Bye-bye, Josie.
And
Bye.
Bye, Josie.
give Jonathan his chance to talk about the Friends. Can you give us a quick update, Jonathan?
The quickest update is that the Friends are still in existence and doing well. They say hello. If you want a longer one, now it's going to take
That's fine. Yeah.
at least 2 minutes. So,
I think we have 2 minutes.
okay. So there's been 2 Friends meetings since we last met. So which is why I indicated 2 minutes. The balance, they currently have over $13,500. They recently made a large donation, $1,300 to the COA for the annual maintenance fee that goes to my senior center for the database. They have increased the membership renewal or the membership amounts to $15 for a single person, $25 for a couple. And the also on, let me just see here because I got 2 months worth here. As Joan mentioned, the Lions Club has raised the possibility of a $500 contribution and is seeking ideas from Joan and the Friends as to what that might go towards. The Dave Kane show, which is when they brought in a comedian, jokes my grandfather, Irish grandfather, I think was, or my Irish father told me back at the end of September. They put a lot of effort into it. There were some expenses there. I think they sold, I'm not sure how many tickets, but the profit was the net proceeds was very small, what they ended up with after paying all the expenses. The we now have somewhere around 225 members. I mentioned to them that that the board was thinking about putting together a committee, subcommittee regarding priorities, needs, and funding in future years. And Mike O'Neill, the president of the Friends, indicated that he was interested in being part of that, if that was possible. Andrea Sullivan, who's been the vice chair of the Friends and was the president, or was the chair for a good while, is stepping down as she is moving this month, we think, to Sunderland. So there's going to be an opening there. And I think, and if you don't want to, the pick there, I think if I understand it properly, and Janet, you can correct me, but the pickleball, they have a separate treasury, I think, just for the account, just for the pickleball funds that were contributed last year to build the courts. And $23,570 was raised, and just over $19,000 was expended, and that included nearly $18,000, which was paid to the town for construction of the courts. So there is a balance there of nearly just under $4,400. And that's my probably 2.5-minute report. Sorry to go over. So.
Thank you, Jonathan. And yes, I mean, people made donations specifically designated for pickleball. So that's why they have to track them separately. So to clarify that. Thanks, Jonathan. That was great. Appreciate it. Rini, anything from the select board to report on?
Yeah, just 3 quick things. Tomorrow is the official dedication of or not dedication, but the opening ceremony of the East Street Bridge at 11:30. And the second thing is there is a special town meeting that the date's been set for December 13th, which is a Tuesday evening. And then lastly, we're starting to work on the budget. So the call has been put out for capital requests. And then in the upcoming month or 2, we'll start the process of the next year's budget. So that's about it. And I also just found out that there is, in fact, a CPC meeting that started at 5:30 to approve another sign for Conant Park. So I'm just going to have to jump off now. Okay. So thanks, everybody, and I'll see you soon.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Rini.
Yeah, Rini.
Bye.
Okay, yeah. Bye-bye.
And I got a question. Did anyone catch what Rini said about a select board meeting on
December 7th, December 13th, Tuesday evening.
And that is on what?
That's
Special town meeting.
Oh, it's a town meeting.
It's a special town meeting, yes. I'm assuming it's at 7 o'clock because they usually typically are at 7 o'clock. So
Norris School, as far as
I would assume that as well. Yeah. So we'll meet again before then, but yeah. And I know when Joan did meet with Ed about, just real quick, on the capital budget, a couple of things they talked about was a mini split system for her office, some kind of petition system for the current room at the COA. We also looked into expanding outdoor area, like excavating in the back. And so there can be more outdoor seating activity, and then purchasing a shed for storage. Maybe the first thing that'll be stored there is medical equipment. But what do you think, Joan?
yeah. So I think maybe John Workman has something to do with all that.
Yeah, I think so. So any other business that can't wait till the next meeting? I had 2 quick things. One is the board and committee bylaws. So we can do this one of 2 ways. We can take a quick look at it, review the documents, or you can send me your comments later today. Which is your preference?
The latter for me. I have to cook.
Did everybody get a chance to take a look at that? I mean, if you have any feedback, if you could send that to me within the next 24 hours, that would be greatly appreciated. Then I can compile it and send it to the chair of the bylaw committee.
I did a very quick read. I printed them last night, and this morning I did, and it looks okay.
Yeah, I just had a couple comments, but I've already shared those. I mean, let me very quickly. Yeah, I mean, overall, it's just kind of a good, I don't know if I have it up here anymore. So couple, my town gov was not correct. My only thing is to have to post the minutes as well as hand them into the town clerk. My comment was it should be either or. If they're posted on my town gov, then, then they're available to the public. So,
Yeah.
So Joan, I have no idea what bylaws you're talking about. Jim made reference to it before, but did you send something out this week? Because I just checked my email again. I didn't see anything.
late last night, Jonathan, I did send something out. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a sense earlier that you didn't,
No, I did not. See.
I think I sent it out to the COA board, so it should be there. I can resend it to you though. But it's the same group message that I typically use. So I'll just read, they're over like an overlying umbrella about boards and committees and whether there's a chair, a vice chair, a clerk, those are 3 mandatory positions. So I'll send them to you, Jonathan. Okay.
I cannot find it. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm good to do that. And the other thing that I have on the other things I can't wait to the next meeting but may need to is Jonathan's roadmap. Thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. Looks like some really good thought and details and some opportunity for discussion. So I would like to push that off to the next meeting and move it a little further up on the agenda so we can take some time to really either create a subcommittee, another subcommittee, which probably would be good to do after our next meeting. Did everybody get a chance to look at Jonathan's comments?
Huh?
Yeah.
So again, it was, I think we should take some time for you to go through it, Jonathan. And I know we're really going into a long meeting right now, but so we can postpone that to the next meeting, but definitely have you go through it for us. In addition to us reading through it, which I've already done, and get some more clarity in some of your questions and comments and better understanding of your thought process. Would that work for you?
Oh, it works for me.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, because I mean, again, it's a good document, it's a good working document. And it's one of those other good documents that might be better suited for review by us and a setup of another subcommittee to kind of work with Joan on some of those thoughts. Okay, does that make sense? Just if you see the agenda when I send it out in December, and if it's not on there, please, if I'm missing anything, I can't remember it all. I need you to give me feedback, like when I have the wrong date or no. So if you see something that's missing, please don't hesitate. I try to get it out longer than 48 hours in advance so that we can make changes to the agenda and make sure that I don't miss everything. So anything else? So Jonathan, we will get that on the next agenda. Okay. And I will send you the bylaw things.
I have one question, but I think it can wait for the next meeting. About the Memory Cafe update and name change. I don't think we talk about the name change.
Oh, we just had a very quick poll and we came up with like 8 names. It has to do with the memory toolkit from the MCOA that we should give a name to the cafe to make it more personable. And anyway, the name Friendship came up, Friendship Cafe, or Friendship Memory Cafe, something that makes it a little more warming. But I know Janet and I had a short discussion about not changing it completely because we want people to know it is a memory cafe.
Yeah, so I would support personally a friendship memory cafe, but as long as we leave memory in there so that people know that it's not just a gathering of
friends,
of anybody, everybody. And I don't know, anybody else have thoughts on that? And I noticed in your flyer, it said the Friendship Memory Cafe or something, right? that Sandy did.
Yeah,
As long as it
That's
contains
fine.
that name, either Alzheimer's or memory or something, so it clearly defines its purpose.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
my feedback. That's me. Sylvia, did you have anything to add to that you wanted
no,
to add?
that was just my question. What, I noticed it on the flyer.
At the last cafe, we spent quite a bit of time in trying to pick a name, and there was lots of suggestions, and that was what was voted on last.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts? Concerns?
Is companions, was that on the list, Joan?
I think
Companion-
caregiver, we put caregivers or something like that, but
Because I wonder if companion actually covers both, partners and friends.
mhm.
In a way that I wonder sometimes someone's partner isn't necessarily their friend. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's a good discussion, Susan. I'll tell
Okay.
you what, let's talk about that, because I
Yeah.
think that was not brought up, but I think we have to get the companion part there, because that's key to the grant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's almost the same amount of letters as friendship. So, no, that's a good suggestion, Susan. Thank you. All right, is there any other business that can't wait until it's always nice spending 2 hours once a month with you guys, so.
What's the next meeting?
Okay, next meeting would be the first Wednesday, thank you. That and adjourn is the next line, right? So.
All right, so that's the 7th.
7th, yep. At 4:00. No dental appointments.
Nope.
I'll put in the minutes again. That'll be September 7th, just to
Okay,
see
well-
if people are reading them.
I know that's why you put it in there. Isn't that funny? Is anybody really reading my minutes?
That's what, we always leave a mistake.
I would rather you not read them.
No, they go up for the rest of the public to read afterwards. So when do you want to talk, Jonathan, on that real quick?
I'm sorry.
Talk about posting. Are you comfortable trying to post for October?
Yeah, let me try it. And because it looked pretty simple, but I've got your suggestion and hopefully I'll remember to convert to PDF.
Okay, that just gives it available to everybody.
But as Lucy had indicated, the process looks pretty simple.
Yeah, okay, so if you run into any roadblocks, so thank you. Jim, we forgot to switch your responsibility for posting minutes to Jonathan, and we got a request from a senior citizen in town. Why are their minutes missing? So that
Wow.
refreshed my memory that I never.
My minutes are very popular.
They are. All right, so people do read them, so that's the good news. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn at 5:56?
So move.
A second?
I'll second.
Susan, okay, roll call real quick. Jim,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
and Janet, yes, and thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very good
Thank
meeting,
you.
you guys.
Right.
Good meeting.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.